Chabad kids, it's Musia is back for another wonderful story. Let's get comfortable, Mus. And we are going to say to every one of our beautiful friends who are joining us that we picked a super special book. And the reason we picked the super special book is because Musia has a super special friend. And this super special book is actually about Musia's friends. Do you remember? Great-grandparents. So they're very special people, and the book is called Perfect Porridge. Now, Melissa, do you know what porridge is?
It's similar.
I'll have to talk loud so everyone can hear you.
It's similar to oats.
Kind of similar to oats. You're right. It's a grain. It can sometimes be like oats. It can be ground up, and you cook it. You cook it in a pot. You cook it with a spoon. And you usually have to put in a liquid. What liquid should we add to our imaginary porridge today? What liquid would you put into your porridge?
Water.
Water. So you might pour in some water, or you might pour in some milk. In this story, they were living at a very, very, very difficult time. And during this very, very, very difficult time, they didn't have a lot of money. But they're going to do whatever they can with all the money and food that they've got. Okay, so Musia, you're going to join us, and we're going to read this special book called Perfect Porridge. Here we go. It is a story about kindness. Okay, so Musia, it's going to be tricky for you to see the pictures, but I'm going to bring them up super close, and she can see it in the screen. Here we go. So that is a wagon. You can see there are two elderly people sitting in the wagon. Let's find out what their names are. Bubby Hinda and Zeta Mendel left their home carrying just a few precious things. Bubby Hinda took her precious, can you spot them and tell us what she took? Her Shabbos candles. There was not that much time to run away when you're running away in the war, but Bubby Hinda knew she would need her Shabbos candles. And her big iron pot, so she could make porridge. I think hers was a bit bigger than this. And maybe it didn't have an orange handle. Zeta Mendel took his tefillin, his tallis, and a few holy svarim, so he would be able to learn Torah. You can see they're leaving the town together, and they can't stay there anymore. And all they have is what they were able to hold on their laps. Now they're getting ready to move into a new home. Do you think their new home is going to be big and beautiful the way their old home was? Unfortunately not. Their new home was tiny and bare. But at least it was further away from the war. That was very important. Bubby missed all her old neighbors and her friends. Zeta missed having a study partner to learn with and students to teach. Yet, Bubby Hinda and Zeta Mendel were very thankful to Hashem. They were safe. They had their health, and they had some food to eat. Sometimes it's hard to be thankful when things are hard, right? I know not everyone's loved being home. Some of us have, and some of them haven't during lockdown, right? It wasn't fun all the time, but we have to think about people and life and think about how lucky we are, because do we have our food? Baruch Hashem. Are we safe? Yeah. And we work to stay safe by keeping our hand sanitizer and our masks and all the important things we need to do. So Baruch Hashem, we have to be grateful and thankful to Hashem. And here, with Bubby Hinda and Zeta Mendel, they had very little, but they were still thankful to Hashem. And you know what Zeta Mendel said? Not only was he thankful for what he had, but he said, not everyone has as much as we have. Well, so did they have a lot? No, and he's saying not everyone has even as much as we have, says Zeta Mendel. How can we help the sick and the hungry people who have come here to escape the war? And they're sitting and thinking together. I know, said Bubba Hinda. Do you see her sitting here? And she thinks of a great idea. Her eyes were shining as she told Zeta Mendel her idea. I'm going to go to the bread line every day. It's not a bakery, it's a bread line. They give out a certain amount of bread per every person. Then I'm going to go and feed those little bits of bread to the people who are not feeling well. After that, I'll come home and cook porridge for the hungry people that I meet in the market. How wonderful is Zeta Mendel and Bubby Hinda. Zeta Mendel shook his head. Let's see what he thinks of the idea. A wonderful plan, Hinda, he tells her, but it's too much for just one person. Since you speak the language in this sea better than I do, you can collect the bread in the market and you go feed the sick people. What do you think he's going to say to do about the porridge?
He's going to do it.
He's going to do it. Do you think he's going to be a good cook? Let's find out. I'll stay here and cook the porridge. When you meet hungry people in the market, just bring them home to me. Now, Bubby Hinda looked pretty surprised. That's her surprise face. But Mendel, she said, you don't have time. You learn Torah every day and all day. So, answered Zeta, I'll learn Torah at night. But Mendel, she said, you don't know how to cook. Does your Zadie know how to cook?
Yeah.
Not all Zadies know how to cook. Does your Tati know how to cook? You want to share all the secrets in Gannat Chabad you. True, answered Zeta, but I've seen you cook 1,000 times. How hard could it be? The next day, Bubby Hinda gave Zadie Mendel the grain for the porridge. So that's that big bag there with a big pot that they brought together, and they're going to get busy cooking for the poor and sick. Are you sure you don't want me to cook it? She asked before she left. Mendel replied. Zeta Mendel said, the sick people are waiting for their bread, Hinda. You go. I'll be fine. Do you see her waving goodbye? Zeta Mendel smiled and waved as Bubby Hinda went off to the market carrying an empty sack. Bubby Hinda smiled and waved back. After davening, Zeta Mendel went set to work. He lit the fire. He went to the well. It wasn't so easy. They couldn't just turn on the tap in their kitchen and get all the water that they wanted. He got a few pails of water from the well. He filled the pot with water, poured in the grain, and he sat down. What do you think he sat down to do? To eat some snack? What do you think he's going to do while it's cooking? Yeah, they probably didn't have much to snack on. What do you think he's going to do while it's cooking? What does Zeta Mendel love to do? Learn. He looks for a free minute to learn, and that's exactly what he's going to do. The water and the grain cooked and bubbled. Zeta Mendel smiled as the smell of porridge filled the house. Late that afternoon, Bubby Hinda arrived with a few hungry people. Do you remember their plan? Zeta Mendel would be busy. He would cook while she was gone, and she'd come home with the hungry people. Do you see that big spoon of porridge inside? That spoon of porridge, they're going to discover something. She leaned over the pot and stuck a long spoon inside. And as she lifted the spoon, she saw a tiny black pebble. Do you know what a pebble is?
It's kind of like a bee.
Yeah, it's a bit harder. It's more like a stone. Do you want to eat pebbles with your porridge?
No.
Would you want to find pebbles in your oats one morning?
No.
No, and she knew that none of these people who were super hungry would want that either. Mendel, she whispered, did you check the grain? No, answered Zeta Mendel. Why? Bubby Hinda held out the spoon with a pebble. Whenever you cook porridge, you need to first check the grain, and you take out the grass and the pebbles and anything else that doesn't belong. Then you wash the grain to remove the dirt that's left. Oh, said Zeta Mendel. He was very quiet. Don't worry, said Bubby Hinda. It won't go to waste. You go learn. And what do you think she did so there was no baltashas?
She washed it.
Yep, she's going to head straight to feed it to the animals. Bubby Hinda took the big pot in her strong arms and emptied it outside near the neighbor's cow. Zeta Mendel watched as the cow ate all of the dirty porridge. Then he sat down at the table with the hungry guests and began learning Torah. Soon, everyone was learning with him. Bubby Hinda toasted some bread and made some tea. The hungry people washed their hands and said a bracha. They ate the very little meal, and then they thanked Hashem. Now the next day, when Bubby Hinda went to the market, she waved to Zeta Mendel and said, don't forget to check the grain. Check the grain, Zeta Mendel said. How hard could it be? Zeta Mendel went to the well and brought back a few pails of water. He filled the pot with water and he hung it on a hook. He checked the grain near the sunny window. He took out all the bits of grass. He took out all the little pebbles. and he rinsed it carefully, poured it into the pot, and he sat down to learn. He did a good job inspecting it. Let's see what happens this time. Late in the day, Babi Hinda arrived with a few more hungry people. She sniffed the air, but hey, it didn't smell like porridge. She leaned over and looked inside the pot. Uh-oh. She saw some very clear grains sitting in some very cold water. Mendel, she whispered, I see you checked the grain, but you forgot to light the fire. Aye, said Mendel. He looked at the floor. Don't worry, said Babi Hinda. It won't go to waste. You go learn. Zaid and Mendel sat down at the table with the hungry guests and began learning Tyra. Soon everyone was learning with him. Babi Hinda quickly lit the fire, and before long, the porridge was ready. The hungry people said a bracha and ate, and thanked Hashem when they were full. Do you see him learning Torah? And the happy people eating. Now the next day, when Babi Hinda went off to the market, she waved to Zaid and Mendel and called out, don't forget to light the fire, and don't forget
to check the porridge.
To check the grain. Light the fire, check the grain, Zaid and Mendel said to himself. How hard could it be? After davening, Zaid and Mendel lit the fire. He went to the well, got a few pails of water, filled the pot with water, checked and washed the grain, and poured it into a pot. Then, with a tired sigh, Zaid and Mendel sat down to learn. The porridge cooked and bubbled all day. Soon the tiny house smelled wonderful. Well, so what do you think is going to happen if you let a pot of porridge cook and bubble all day long? Let's see what happens. That afternoon, Babi Hinda arrived. That's her coming home. She found a whole group of hungry people. She leaned over the pot, stuck a long spoon in it, but no porridge could come out. It was all stuck to the bottom in a great big lump. Melissa is right. It burned into the bottom. Mendel, she whispered, I see you lit the fire and checked the grain, but did you stir the porridge? No, answered Zaid and Mendel. Why? Unless you stir the porridge, it sticks to the pot like glue. Oh, said Zaid and Mendel. Don't worry, said Babi Hinda. It won't go to waste. You go sit and... He did a lot of learning Tyra. Zaid and Mendel sat down with a hungry guest and started to learn Tyra. Soon everyone was learning with him. Babi Hinda, she was very industrious. She quickly scraped the lumpy porridge out of the pot. She cut it into slices. She added salt. She fried each slice with a little bit of oil. Babi Hinda served the first portion to Zaid and Mendel, who looked closely at the new food. Porridge latkes, he said. Babi Hinda smiled at him. I told you it wouldn't go to waste. Is that clever? That's a great way not to make sure that nothing goes to waste. The hungry people said a bracha, ate, and thanked Hashem when they were full. Not a single porridge latke was left. The next day, when Babi Hinda went off to the market, she waved to Zaid and Mendel, called out and said, don't forget to light the fire. Don't forget to check the grain. Don't forget to stir the porridge. Light fire, check grain, stir porridge. Zaid and Mendel said to himself. He repeated it as he brought the water from the well. Light fire, check grain, stir porridge, he sang as he poured the water into the pot. He hung it on the hook. All that morning the fire danced. The clear grain bubbled. You can see him stirring the porridge, and Zaid and Mendel stirred. When Babi Hinda came home, a parade of hungry people followed her. She leaned over the pot, stuck a long wooden spoon inside, took out a tiny bit of porridge. She sniffed it. She blew on it. She said a bracha, and she took a taste. She closed her eyes and swallowed. Do you think she was happy with the taste?
Yes.
Look at her face. Babi Hinda looked right at Zaid and Mendel and said, this porridge is perfect! Better than mine. Zaid and Mendel stood a little straighter and smiled at his wife. To make perfect porridge, he said, is harder than it looks. The hungry people said a bracha and ate, thanked Hashem when they were full. They all stayed and learned Tyra with Zaid and Mendel that night. From then on, Babi Hinda had new neighbors and friends. Zaid and Mendel had study partners to learn with and students to teach. Oh, said Zeta Mendel, always would tell them, a good mitzvah, a good deed, is like perfect porridge. When you make perfect porridge, you have to take the time to do it right. You see Zeta Mendel learning with them?
Yeah.
Bobby Hindu with the ladies? And that's him teaching them that special lesson that doing mitzvahs sometimes takes time, but you have to take the time to do it right. Now, they were a very special couple who used every opportunity, even when it was such hard times, to help Yidden in lots of different ways. And sometimes it's not always so easy to do a mitzvah. Sometimes it's so easy, right? And sometimes we're like, oh gosh, of course I would want to help them, but it's so hard. And it takes so long. And of course I want to help, build the sukkah and help my mommy in the kitchen and peeling potatoes. But seriously, can I do it just for 5 minutes? It takes so long. It's not easy. But what do Bobby Hinda and Zeta Mendel teach us about doing mitzvahs? Take the time.
Right.
Yep.
You didn't read the blood.
Take the time to do it right. That's like making perfect porridge. Mostly wanted me to read. We're out of time, but really it talks about they were a very special couple, and they made sure that all the people wouldn't get weaker during the war. And they're the Bubby and Zadie we definitely know of the Leshes family here in Melbourne, and maybe some other families nearby, but we can definitely learn wherever we are, our special mitzvahs that we can do. Take the time to do it right, even if it's not so easy, right? And today, Musa did a special mitzvah, and we'll end off to tell you all that there's lots of exciting Simchas Torah packages that are waiting for every single kid, every one of you Chabad youth kids. And Musa took a lot of time today to make sure that they were right, with a lot of work and a lot of energy, and we want to make sure you get one. So you can either, you're right, you can either come to 711 Meadow Street and pick yours up, or if you want otherwise, you can get it from the Khans if you're part of Dominion, or you can get it delivered to your door if you're part of Young Yeshiva. So we hope you're all going to come and get one of your special packets, and you can do all the fun activities that are in there. There's a flag to make and a sickle mobile that you can create, really cool stuff, and a lot of mitzvahs that it'll remind you of that you can do just right, just like perfect porridge. Good night, Chabad youth.